How do we start this? God, I didn't think about that part.
You didn't, okay, well, like, one of us has to be the host. Like, hey everybody, welcome to the ScrewAttack podcast. I'm Eric Fox, and joining me is a man who is never a miserable pile of secrets, Mr. Tom Blight. Take it away.
Hey, that's me. I'm
It
Tom.
is you. It is you. And we're talking so naturally, it's great. This is already going to a great start.
So, Eric,
Yes.
I don't know. I wanted to talk about something that I really like because I've got nothing better to do with my time in the pandemic.
With the pandemic, and it's not like we have anything to celebrate right now or anything. This is recorded on November 8th, by the way.
So, let's talk about Metroidvania games.
Tom, I love Metroidvania games. Do you? No.
Yeah, I definitely do.
Yeah.
It's like half of the games I play at this point. It's a little ridiculous.
I feel like I play half those, a quarter of roguelikes, and then the rest are just JRPGs, which, like, there's not many of them, but it doesn't take much to really take up the time, so, definitely doing a JRPG podcast would be a bit too much of a time investment.
Yeah, that would be like, the episodes would have to be so far apart just because you have to put at least 80 hours into every one of them.
It'd be more like a rewatch podcast where, like, we'll just do a section per episode.
Yeah, it's fair. The world's least visual Let's Play.
Oh, man. It's offered in described video.
Oh, boy.
Alright, I'm hitting attack again.
Yep. Oh, it dealt damage. 70. Alright. So, I guess, Eric, what's your definition of Metroidvania as a genre?
So, genres are weird, and it's hard to have a pinpoint definition, like if you're talking about something like sci-fi, which Metroid is. Usually you just pick a bunch of, like, reference points, like, oh yeah, Star Trek, Star Wars, stuff like that. And thankfully, Metroidvania comes with built-in reference points of Metroid and Castlevania. So it's like games like those, but like specific entries. Like, no one would pick, say, Super Castlevania 4 as an entry in the genre, but like Symphony of the Night, obviously, and also no one would pick Federation Force for Metroid, a game that I hope no one played, but obviously Super Metroid is like the example. It's you have a pretty open area to move around. It's usually platformer-ish, but obviously we'll get to things that are less focused on that. But the idea is that going through the game is more, okay, you have certain areas you can explore. There are natural obstacles that you eventually get the power-ups to then get past, and then kind of open up the explorable area more and more. And there's less of a focus on narrative, and more so on, I don't know, environments, lore?
Exploration? I feel
Exploration.
like it's the key thing there.
I think exploration's the key thing, but like lots of games have exploration, like open world games I feel don't count, but there's kind of a gray area there.
Yeah, it's a very different exploration. Like, I agree open world games probably don't count. Because, like, I feel like the key element of a Metroidvania is that they're not really open at the start. They have you in a pretty limited area, and then as your capabilities grow, you get access to more areas.
Yeah.
And so, like, in that way, they're also kind of linear.
The thing is, like, people talk about Metroidvanias and like the idea of sequence breaking, but the sequence is very important. There is a set like path of, okay, you're going to get this ability, then this one, and this one unlocks that one. And so it's all about the way the game obfuscates how linear it actually is.
Yeah, and sequence breaking is also kind of an interesting thing where it's like, if a game isn't linear, it's not sequence breaking, it's just playing the game in an intended order.
or like there is no intended order, so it becomes open world in a sense. But yeah, these are kind of like broad concepts. It's like in Super, you're always going to get like the morph ball first. I'm pretty sure. Like you go through the first section, go back to like the Metroid 1 reference area.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole
say.
lot there. Like, you don't have very many capabilities before that, so I don't know how you would get around it. Maybe with some weird glitching.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the morphing ball is pretty clear as the first one thing you get, and also missiles. But there are ways like Super Metroid has a lot of like platforming physics, that make it like pretty good to speed run, but like to like try and skip things like the wall jump technique. You can get around and climb areas that you're not specifically intended to know about. Like there are these like it's a weird optional thing that these weird animals teach you about much later in the game, but you can do it from the get-go.
Those animals. Maybe this is a rant that is not the right time to talk about this.
Lay it on me, brother.
So I was playing Super Metroid on a train in Japan when I didn't have internet access,
Oh man.
and I fell into the pit that
Yeah.
you can get out of by wall jumping. And it was just like, okay, animals, I know you're trying to show me how to wall jump, but I don't know how to do it on the controller. And I think I actually ended up putting the game away and waiting until I reached a point where I guess we came out of the tunnel and the free Wi-Fi kicked in, or maybe I did it actually in a hotel later that night. I like had to look up how you do that wall jump because I could get it maybe 1 out of 100 tries.
Yeah. First time I fell in that pit, like the first time I played it, I think it was back in high school. I was not getting what they were trying to teach me. Also had to look it up, but like that specific like circumstance of okay, you've fallen in this place, and there's only one way out, which is use the thing we're trying to either give or teach you, is like one of the strengths of the genre of like, okay, we're not going to let you get past this until we're sure you know this new thing. But they did not do a good enough job of really teaching in that sense.
Well, I feel like that's just an example of the technique being kind of hard and annoying, and I don't know exactly why that is, right? But it's like you need to be pushing towards the wall, push away,
Push back.
you get like a couple frames to
Yep.
then hit jump.
Yep. And like it's a specific like sprite as well for when Samus is able to wall jump again.
Yeah.
But it's so quick. But like once you get the rhythm, it's fine and is like but like it's a very specific thing. Like no other game does wall jumps really like it does. Like it's not like a Mario where it's like you slide down the wall and jump whenever you want. It's
Well, actually, so I was playing Mario 64 again recently,
Oh.
and its wall jumps are actually pretty hard, and it's somewhat of a similar thing of press jump, like, when you touch the wall.
Yeah.
But it's not even as hard as Super Metroid was.
And to be fair, they're called wall kicks in
Oh,
that game.
sorry.
And I'm given to understand that they will work in at least 1 star.
But I much prefer, like, the Mega Man X style stuff where it's like you're just gripping the wall and sliding down it, and then whenever you want to jump away from it, you can.
And often you're not jumping away so much as just kind of sliding up the wall.
Oh, yeah. Mega Man X being able to just, like, kick upward the wall is a little strange, but, you know, it works for the game.
Yeah. And Mega Man is not a Metroidvania.
Yeah, that's a
I'm
good
going
segue.
I'm going to claim that right now.
I understand. I feel like it's actually got a lot of similar elements, and that's why the distinction's kind of interesting. So, like, because it's got secrets that you obtain by getting additional capabilities to like navigate the map or to clear obstacles, right? Which I feel like is
Yeah.
pretty core Metroid stuff. But so what makes it
Yeah.
not a Metroidvania for you?
So it's strictly level based for one thing, and I don't think any of the like upgrades are optional, except for the like suit upgrade parts. I think like those just kind of make things easier and don't usually unlock things. Like I think in the first one, the dash was something you had to find.
I think you're talking about Mega Man X.
Mega
rather
Man
than
X
the
one, yeah.
originals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the dash is actually avoidable, though it's like it requires you to wall kick over the capsule or something.
Oh, like you really need to get around it.
Yeah. But like other than the weapons which are forced on you, I think you can get away with not having them. They do force you to have the upgraded Buster if you didn't get it.
Oh.
When Zero dies, spoilers for Mega Man X, a game that is like more than 20 years old.
I'm quitting this podcast. I can't believe you would spoil Mega Man X for me.
He gives you his Buster, and I believe the final Sigma can't be hurt except by the full Buster shot, or by his Robot Master weakness.
I cannot recall. Listen, I played that game once, and it was over half my life ago.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the Mega Man X series, so I've played that game probably at least 3 times on like modern consoles.
Ooh.
Or phones.
Or phones. God. Yeah, that's the hallmark of a diehard fan there.
Yeah, so like the big thing for Mega Man X not being a Metroidvania is its like lack of contiguous map, right? It's got distinct levels. The traversal, it doesn't gate your progress with the completion of the game so much. I don't know if that's actually something that I would say is required. That came up, I was reading people talking about Blasphemous, which is very much it's sort of in the Soulsborne influenced side of Metroidvania. And I heard people arguing that because you can complete it without you like gaining any abilities, that it doesn't count. And I don't know. I don't know about that.
Like I think it's like comes down to like the like feeling of like what you're getting out of playing the game and what parts of it are like satisfying. And like I think there's also this capacity of like exploration is so key to it that there needs to be an element of or like the capacity to get lost, to like fail at exploration that I don't think Mega Man ever really gets into. You go from one side to the other. You can miss certain things, but very rarely, like you might get a maze level, but the core game of it is more of an action focus.
Which is sort of interesting because like you can get lost, but at the same time there's always a map for you. At least in most of the traditional ones. There's some recent ones that are like a little more willing to mess with the always a map for you. Like Hollow Knight famously does its thing where you don't get to see where you are on the map at any time unless you equip a particular charm to do it. And the map only fills in when you go to the save points.
Yeah, and the map is usually something you either find or buy.
Or like
prior
to that, it won't record it at all.
Yeah, and like other games like Symphony of the Night or Super Metroid, like even when you get the like maps like thing, it doesn't reveal everything. And like it'll still like fill out your as you explore. So like, but like you're not given all the information you need. Like, oh, if you missed certain items you couldn't get to yet, or doors you couldn't open. Like you'll occasionally have it mapped or like indicated, but I don't know. I think, for Mega Man, I think is just definitely more of a what the game is focused on, what traversal through that game actually feels like.
Yeah, Okay, so here's, I guess, another challenge. Do they have to be 2D?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I actually just recently played through the entire Metroid Prime trilogy, which is the 3D interpretation of the formula, and I gotta say it tickles the same parts of my brain being good at that game as it was playing through Super.
Okay.
It's
So here's a bit of a challenge for you then.
okay.
Is The Legend of Zelda a Metroidvania?
I was thinking about this, and like at its best, I feel like the Zelda games like gesture towards Metroidvania status. Like the good dungeons are the ones that are like complex enough that like, oh, you need to check a map. You like making mental notes of different spots in the dungeon. But like I think they're like, I don't know. You could make the argument that they're like a collection of like mini Metroidvanias in an otherwise open world game. When it's at its best. Like I think Zeldas have also been pretty linear. But there's definitely that like exploration and adventure element that I think is present in it that is very similar. Like actually it's funny that you bring up Zelda as well, because I don't know if you know this, but there is a ROM hack of Super Metroid and Link to the Past that combines the games together.
Wait, what?
Into one randomizer. So you like there are certain parts in the game where you'll transition from like they added doors to like transition from one game to the other, and you'll find Zelda items and weapons and stuff in Super Metroid and vice versa. So you're trying to complete both games at the same time.
Okay. I mean, I guess that works, and like, I mean, there's also like Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link is sort of like that in that it's got this top-down overworld, although you don't do much actual like interacting with things on the overworld,
Yeah.
and then it's got those side-scrolling sections, right? And so it's like, okay, those are sort of the same, right?
Yes. But I think again it's like more of like a condensed like Metroidvania experience in the dungeons. The ROM hack only works when it's a randomizer, so it already has the Zelda's entire world open, essentially, and you're just limited by like getting the right items instead of like the narrative roadblocks it always throws in your way.
Yeah, I don't know. My gut feeling is that Zelda is not a Metroidvania for fairly arbitrary reasons, because I can't think of a really good reason that I would disqualify it from being one.
It has.
So I feel like they belong to a super genre that we don't have a good name for.
Yeah,
together.
Like I think, like that's the nature of genres, that they're going to bleed together a whole lot because it's less about like a strict set of things you can point to as necessary conditions and more like, how does it feel to play? Like, what are the general concepts? And they're like, games are complicated things, and they'll borrow from a bunch of different places. I think Zelda in particular, just in comparison to like the mainstays of Metroidvania, it has a lot of more narrative blocking of exploration rather than natural blocking of exploration. You're not. More often you're limited by, oh, an NPC is going to block you, rather than I can't blow up this clearly broken block or whatever.
I mean, some of them definitely do the like Pokemon, you can't get past here because there's a sheep in the way.
Or you need
something.
to go visit Zelda and she'll give you a letter, and then you can take that letter to the village and then he'll open up the gate.
But they also do some of the like classic Metroidvania of like, oh, you need the hammer to smash this rock so that you can get through. Usually more for secrets. I guess it's pretty rare for you to be able to leave a dungeon with the dungeon item and just go to a different dungeon and do its stuff. Although I guess I've never really tried it. You can probably do it in Ocarina of Time, right?
Yes. Ocarina of Time is also like busted for a bunch of other reasons if you know what you're doing. But like, there's never really a good reason to. Like, you can, when you enter a dungeon, you can get everything in that dungeon. Pretty much, except I think Master Quest added a few, like, Skulltulas that you need to come back for, but... yeah, and then, of course, Breath of the Wild is just an open-world game.
Yeah.
I think that's hard to argue.
Yeah. I guess, what do you feel about the name Metroidvania? Do you like it, hate it?
It's not the worst genre name. And at the very least has two examples in its name, as opposed to, say, a roguelike, which only has one game that no one has ever played, or God of War clone, or Doom clone, which is what first-person shooters used to be called.
Yeah, or like, Soulsborne is a technicality, but like it's literally the same game made by the same people, just as a different name.
Yeah, and also Soulsborne, it's Gothic Metroidvania. With a bit more
that is
RPG.
also an interesting question of, do things like Dark Souls count? Where it's like, you don't gain traversal abilities except for keys.
That is true.
So like, I don't know, I kind of feel like gaining some sort of traversal ability that is not just a key is important to me, but you could probably argue that some of the traversal abilities just function identical to keys.
I was about to say, like, they function the same way. It's all about context. Like we'll get to Other M. One of the main problems with that game is that, like, functionally speaking, you're getting items in the same way. You get to a certain point, okay, now you have this traversal option, now you can go to somewhere else. But contextually, some guy giving you permission, daddy saying it's okay, is far different from you finding this thing yourself. That game's got problems, but we'll get to it.
Daddy says you can stop burning yourself now.
Daddy says it's okay to use the super missiles.
Yeah, like, I don't know, I think the best abilities in Metroidvania games are ones that aren't just used for exactly positions where they intended it to be used, but has, like, some utility, say, in combat, or just, like, to get around otherwise.
Abilities that have multiple purposes. Like, I think the grapple beam is pretty good, where you can, like, swing around and stuff, but also it picks up items in certain games. Like, it'll also be like a tool you can use, like in Prime, actually. In Prime 3, there are a bunch of uses for the grapple in combat, actually. It's weird. Because it's like, for one thing, you swing across gaps you can't usually jump across. Cool. Also, there are enemies with shields. Use that to rip them off. There are also enemies that are like mechanical, and you can just kind of latch onto and either destroy them immediately or drain their energy if you're low on health. It's neat.
Yeah. My least favorite is definitely the things where, like, they just put a thing on the ground or the wall, and you get a contextual input on that thing in the ground or wall, and you're just like, yep, this was just a key.
This was
a fancy key.
It's a fancy key.
Some kind of animation involved, but it's a key.
A switch. But yeah, I don't think I answered your first question of how I actually feel about Metroidvania as a genre name. It's fine. I don't know how you feel about it. Like, I think it's fine, but also, like, we just need to get better genre names in general. Like, I think action adventure and character action game, like, those genres are useless unless you already know what that means. Like, you could have named it anything.
Yeah, I guess my only real complaint about the term Metroidvania, I'm perfectly fine with it, is that I think it sort of encourages people to look at it as a false spectrum that exists purely between Metroid and Castlevania, and, like, you have to be somewhere in between them on the spectrum, and I don't really feel like that's how games taxonomy classification should work, where it's like, yeah, okay, this has Metroid-ish elements, and this has Castlevania-ish elements, but it also has elements from Soulsborne, or it's, puzzly, and like that doesn't exist on a single 1D spectrum.
Yeah.
That exists in, like, I don't know, an amorphous cloud, maybe a lot of dimensions that you can't really visualize.
Yeah, it's one of those things where names kind of like limit your conception of what they can be. And if you only have 2 points of reference, that's going to be rough. Like at least like roguelike has like exploded enough at this point that because no one's played the original Rogue, no one's limited by original Rogue.
Surely there's somebody who's played the original Rogue.
No, I'm claiming right here and now, nobody has played that game. Everyone's faking it. It's unplayable.
All right, hot takes.
Hot takes. You heard them here first.
So I guess which do you prefer, Metroid or Castlevania?
Probably Castlevania. Even though I think the entries in Metroid that I like more. And I think the Castlevania style ones are more similar to each other than, like, Castlevania never had a successful 3D foray, really. And I think I like the Prime series better overall, but I think its approach of like the combat in Castlevania feels like more open, like the way you get like different weapons and like the enemy abilities, spells. It makes traversal more fun than Metroid's general like run and gun, I guess. But it's very tough to say.
Yeah.
How about you?
I feel like my answer is sort of more in the middle. Neither of them quite have some of the things that I think are my favorite elements in like platforming action games.
Right.
Which is usually involving fast and intense combat. Apparently, my wife says I am a stress junkie. I'm somehow not surprised.
Oh yeah, of course.
But like,
listen, you're God's gift to gamers. Okay, we're all on board. We know you want more character action in your Metroidvania with a little bit of action adventure.
Like that's sort of more on the Castlevania side. I feel like if I'm naming things that I feel like are on the Castlevania side of things, it's like, okay, so Castlevania has some RPG elements in which, like, in a bunch of them you gain experience and you level up independently of finding the secrets.
But also you have strict stats and like armor and weapons that affect those stats.
Yeah, but it also has a little bit more nimble combat and a little more interesting things that you could be doing in combat, where Metroid is often, do you want to shoot this beam? Do you want to charge up that beam? Or do you want to shoot this rocket? Or charge up that rocket?
Yeah, Samus is a tank. Like, very much like, you're going to take damage. In fact, that's part of going faster, is strategically taking damage. But, like, other than, like, becoming a ball, becoming sphere, or running, like, building up to the speed booster is, it takes a minute. You're not doing that in combat. So it's usually just a more of a, just gun them and don't get hit. Whereas you get backdashes, you get jump kicks in Castlevania. It's great.
Yeah. Although, like, I don't know, apparently, even though there's a backdash, it's not the same as having a front dash to me. You gotta have a front dash. Clearly, I just need to get better at turning around.
Yeah, I was about to say, you can turn a backdash into a front dash. One easy step.
But yeah, that's definitely like the Mega Man X thing, where it's like, I loved Mega Man X as a kid, and I just want to like dash around and have a really nimble fight. And like Metroid is so slow in that way. You're like, when you fight, you're usually only dodging by jumping straight up and down, kind of thing.
Yeah, it is more built for exploration in that sense of like there's a cadence to how she moves that like really allows you to kind of take in your environments. But yeah, no, like the actual playing of the game, it makes like playing a Castlevania randomizer much more of an enticing prospect to me because I just like the base game enough, and so when things are all like any which way, like exploring that game is more fun in the moment-to-moment gameplay.
I mean, yeah, it's still fun to explore. It's just like I could be exploring and having challenging combat at the same time.
At the same time, hey, like, did you ever play Samus Returns? That gave you a parry.
I have not played Samus Returns yet.
Have you played the original Metroid 2?
I did not play that one either.
Oh man, that one's it's an interesting but rough take. Definitely better than the NES original. But Super is definitely the one where they nailed it.
Yeah. So speaking of that, what's the first experience you had with a Metroidvania?
It was Metroid 1. I think I was 3, maybe 4, and played the opening, like, 3 to 4 hallways probably, like, 30 times? Because that one, it had a password system, but I never got far enough or, like, had the wherewithal to write down a password. So I just kind of played the same area again because, hey, that game is busted. That game sucks. It was legendary at the time, obviously, but actually playing that without any sort of hint guide or, the cognizant ability to remember where rooms are, because there are no landmarks almost anywhere in that game. Like, it'll change up the tile set when you go to, like, the discrete areas, like when you go down to Norfair or Brinstar or wherever, but...
Like, I forget, does that have a map in it, or is it actually no map?
It does not. It has no map. It has alternating, like, horizontal scrolling and vertical scrolling areas. So, like, which all basically look the same and are obviously repeating because the NES had no memory space. And so I didn't beat that game until well into adulthood, and could not recommend it less.
Yeah, I went back and played the original Metroid at some point on the Switch. It was like, yeah, this is alright. Actually, maybe it was on the DS Ambassador program. I don't remember.
It was on the 3DS Ambassador program.
Yeah, I liked it, but it was definitely like an early one, and things have improved since it.
Yeah.
And I think I did use guides so that I had an idea of where the heck I was going.
Like, the way they hid some things is just, it's cruel.
You don't enjoy pixel hunts?
It's not even that, because, like, there isn't really indication that, this one area is bombable so you can go underneath, and if you're paying attention, you'll know that the last room was a horizontal scrolling one, so this tiny room actually scrolls vertically, so if you go down into the what looks like deadly sand, actually it's the ice beam, so excellent. Good job. You need this.
I mean, like, I feel like it's just a thing that if there's going to sand appear, that you have to jump into the sand and fall.
Except it's the same, like, thing as the damaging, like, I think it's supposed to look like lava or acid or something. I always saw it as sand.
That's fair.
Like, no, it is the exact same as the hurt floor in other rooms. It's just, this one's fake. Haha, gotcha.
Yeah, and that's definitely a thing that I feel like is just kind of a thing you shouldn't do, of don't make things that look like they hurt you not hurt you and actually be where secrets are. Yeah. Because why would someone intentionally run themselves into something that looks like it's going to hurt you?
If they're trying to go fast.
Yes. Like, why would somebody look there?
Yeah, exactly. Unless it's well telegraphed, it's rough.
Unless they had exhausted all other options. But at that point, you're just, like, jumping into random walls and floors, hoping for something to happen.
Yeah, and I'm already trying to shoot every wall or bomb every floor. I don't need this in my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, surprisingly, that didn't turn me off the genre, but I didn't return to it until high school, where I just went like, okay, I've got all of the SNES games on my computer now. Let's check out Super Metroid I've heard so much about, and the rest is history, kind of.
Yeah, that's pretty similar for me. I actually came to the genre really late. I think my first one was Castlevania Circle of the Moon on the GBA.
Ooh.
I rented it probably sometime around 2001 when it came out. And like that didn't actually hook me. Like, I mean, I liked the game, but I wasn't like,
Yeah.
I must consume all of the Metroidvanias now. That only really came about around playing Axiom Verge, and then Hollow Knight really
Really?
cemented it for me.
You never really got into Symphony or Aria or the DS iterations?
I've actually never played Symphony of the Night, and that's something we should probably rectify.
I believe that is that is required reading for this course. You have not read the syllabus. I can't believe this.
Yeah, which has been kind of interesting because I've actually played Bloodstained now, which is basically Iga leaves and goes and makes his own Castlevania with hookers and blackjack.
Yeah, basically, like it's got elements from all of the Castlevanias he worked on, and so missing that crucial piece must have been a trip. So yeah, no, we'll sit you down. We'll like Clockwork Orange style and make you play it.
Gotta keep my eyes open the entire time.
Yeah, how else are you going to keep an eye on all those hidden secrets? Yeah. It's funny that you prefer Castlevania, but haven't played the best one.
I mean, that's the funny thing is, where it's like, I'm sort of on the Castlevania side.
That's
right?
true. That's true.
I don't know. I don't actually care for the RPG elements components of the Castlevania type games.
Oh, really?
And I don't care that much for the soul catching that's in some of them.
Yeah, that one got a little Pokemon-y. A little, certain, definitely some of them are a little too RNG heavy if you're going to try for 100% soul catching. But honestly, it's not that bad if you don't care about 100%.
Yeah. I mean, Bloodstained has had a somewhat annoying thing where they actually gated your progression on one particular soul that wasn't a 100% drop, and you were just kind of like, what do I do until you get it? Or look up a guide that tells you to just re-enter a room and kill this one enemy until you get its soul.
I must have gotten lucky because I don't remember that at all.
It's the water push.
Okay. Yeah, no, I definitely got lucky on that one.
Yeah, but I did not. I got confused, looked some stuff up, and was like, oh, well, that's kind of dumb.
That is kind of dumb.
But
you heard it here first. Bloodstained. It not perfect.
I guess transitioning with that, and this answer might be the same for you. What's your least favorite Metroidvania you've ever played?
Oh God. Yeah, no. If we're counting the first Metroid, it's that one. Because like I don't tend to like Metroidvanias are like if I'm not enjoying it, I'm not going to stick with it. I think it's probably that one, or like I love the game, but I also kind of hate it. La Mulana. In that, like, okay, like it is the greatest gulf between peaks of I solved this. I am a god. I am the hugest brain of all time. To I've spent 3 hours getting nothing, and I don't even know how to use this guide to not spoil myself for the whole game. It's and this was the original too. I don't think I ever finished the remake, but the 2005 MSX style original, That one was a trip.
Are they that different other than the art style?
Not really. I think their physics is a bit different. There are definitely like some traps that if you played the original would get you. Like they inverted what kills you and what's the actual solution. I'm pretty sure. And also, I think the localization of the remake got a few things, like, complicated a few things more than they should have.
Huh.
But, like, that's just, like, third-hand information.
Right.
But,
I mean, I've only played the remake, so...
I remember. I remember those long messages of, hey, do you remember how I don't know what to do here?
Yeah, I did eventually find a, non-spoiler hint walkthrough, which was actually really good, where it had cascading layers of hints, being like, okay, I'm gonna give you a weak hint now, and then keep reading the next spoiler if you want to find out a more obvious hint, and at some point I'll just tell you.
Yeah.
So I maybe should have let myself struggle a little more with some of it. Maybe the real La Mulana experience is being a kid with an MSX who doesn't have the ability to look things up on the internet.
The thing is, you have to have incredible mental fortitude, or just take excellent notes, which is also a thing I just don't do.
Or play it with friends and then you meet and then talk about it you're trying to replicate the total childhood games experience before the internet. Where it's oh man, I heard that you can find Yoshi or something. I don't know.
Clearly, we need to do that for La Mulana too.
It's an option.
It is a game I also haven't finished.
Man, I mean, I asked this question, but now I don't know what I would say my least favorite Metroidvania that I've ever played is.
Hoisted.
I've had fun with almost every Metroidvania that I've played. There's certainly elements of things that I didn't like so much. I'm gonna go, the one that disappointed me the most.
Okay.
I think was Bloodstained.
You were pretty hyped on it beforehand?
Yeah, and it's not a bad game. I was just expecting, I don't know, more polish.
Okay. That's definitely a legitimate criticism of that game. There are definitely, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm not that big on 3D models compared to well done sprite animation, so that's also just kind of a bias that I have.
Yeah.
But B, its plot is kind of nonsensical, and not even in a nonsensical, I can put these things on a conspiracy board a Dark Souls game would be, and write my own narrative of how these things go together.
Yeah.
But just kind of nonsensical in that you put all of the plot that you have and you're just kind of I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know, this wasn't super interesting.
Okay, there's this guy, I don't know who he is, I guess he's important. Okay, you're gonna explain who he is, but then he's
got crystals,
guy.
Man.
Crystals. He's got crystals.
I laughed a lot at I think it was their Kickstarter video for introducing the characters, and they describe one of the characters as who also has crystals. It's just oh, God, this is not a great way to advertise your game.
Listen, the crystal enthusiasts are losing their shit. They think Bloodstained is game of the year every year. Second only to Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. I think I went into that game with much lowered expectations. I expected to be disappointed. I thought, okay, this is going to be pretty good, but then I also did not really dig the move to 3D models. There's definitely some jank in the story cutscenes of the close-ups of the models is just kind of not really impressive. The quest system was just, okay, kill these guys. Kill those murderers dead.
Yeah, I feel like I spent half the game walking between the vendor that you can buy things at and the vendor that you can synthesize things at.
Yep.
That and like killing random arbitrary enemies that were pretty hard to figure out which ones were which for food before you got the first food drop for a thing.
Right.
I was like, I think I had to look up what enemy gives you lemons.
100% that game is too much.
Yeah.
But all of
these are all pretty minor complaints. The gameplay was actually fairly fun, although again, I prefer combat to be a little more dynamic.
Yeah, so you want a platinum developed Metroidvania.
Yeah. Or just like make Mega Man X into a Metroidvania.
Man, why haven't they done that?
I guess flipping this, what's your favorite Metroidvania, or at least one that you're pretty fond of? You don't need to be like, this is the end all be all favorite one.
That's true. Like, I'm thinking, and I don't think I have weirdly, I don't have nostalgia for Super Metroid, but I do have for the Prime series. Even though I played them around the same time. I think Metroid Prime 2 stands out as one that I've played recently and really stands out as, okay, yeah. And like this is one of like the ones that kind of break the mold of being 3D and a first-person shooter, and also one that generally people despise.
Yeah, I mean, I've never played 2. I played Metroid Prime 1, and it was, like, good. I don't know, I don't think I like it quite as much as 2D action games, but...
I don't know. I just really like how they designed the world. Like if Prime 1 had a problem where its interconnectivity basically boiled down to everything's connected to Magmore Caverns, which is just kind of like a straight line. Yeah. And so anytime you want to go anywhere, like backtracking, oh, you're going back to the caverns, my dude. I hope you like da 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 da.
I mean, I feel like it was one of the better pieces of music in that. Or at least the catchier pieces of music. The other ones were a little more atmospheric.
It was catchier to its detriment because it played so often. It kind of got a little annoying for me. Like, at first it was like, oh yeah, like, excellent music all around generally for, like, not getting in your face. That one was just too much for me. Whereas Prime 2 had this, like, there's this main, like, great temple in the center. Surrounding that is the first, like, area in, like, the sort of, like, hub area called Temple Grounds. And then, like, in like, the 3 directions around it, like, north, southwest, southeast, whatever, is where, like, the main areas you'd be exploring for, whatever MacGuffin you're going for. And so in each of those, we're kind of in a ring of connectivity, so, like, just getting around was just really... Oh, what's the word?
Crystal? I don't know.
Crystal, yeah. It was crystal clear.
I don't know, it just felt natural.
It felt natural, is a thing. And, which I really appreciated. Even though, like, that game also has, like, that whole Dark World mechanic of... Okay, when you're exploring the same area, but it's, like, different and darker, and that whole game is generally, like, atmospherically very, like, depressing. But I think it did better for focusing on that one aspect and just doing it really well, rather than being, like, a rainbow of, okay, now you get the ice world, and the sky world, and then the fire world. It's good. Yeah. What's your favorite?
I'm gonna go for Hollow Knight. I don't know, I was really digging the, like, Soulsborne sort of aesthetic. I know there's some people who are like, it's not that much like Soulsborne. But also it's, like, got some very crunchy fighting in it that I can sink a lot of time into trying to get better at. I still need to go back to it at some point and try to do the Pantheon stuff. Because that didn't exist while I was playing Hollow Knight.
Oh.
Like, they updated it several times through it, like after it released. And one of the updates was, "Hey, we've added the most intense boss rush mode of like any game, which includes new bosses and like every boss having a hard mode."
Nice. Okay, yeah.
So I haven't done that, but like I liked a lot of the other stuff that was going on. I have some minor complaints about it. I don't like it when hitting enemies pushes your character.
Okay. Like
yeah, like when you swing your sword and make contact with them, the Bug Knight, I don't know what to actually call him, so I'm just gonna go for Bug Knight.
the Hollow Knight. It's probably not actually him. There's probably an actual character called Hollow Knight. I've not played the game.
Yes, there is an actual character named Hollow Knight. He like goes back a couple of pixels,
Gotcha.
and like you can actually knock yourself off of platforms this way. And I've probably killed myself at least once doing it.
Oh no.
And that's a little annoying. That's also, I think, part of some of the weirder sequence breaks in the game. Like, there's some ledges that you're only supposed to be able to get once you have the dash. But if you jump at them, turn around, shoot the projectile, it will push back you. And then if you instantly keep pushing in that direction, I believe you can get onto some platforms early on.
It'll push back you?
Yeah, like everything pushes you a little bit.
No, I know.
Right?
I'm just razzing you for your grammar there.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah, so like that's one of the things where sequence breaks you abuse the physics of the game, where you can like you do certain things, like the game is complicated enough where you can do certain things to like actually get to places you're not supposed to. I know in Aria of Sorrow, in like one of the first upgrades you get is like this slow descent, so you can just kind of jump and like cross a gap that's usually a little too far. Yeah. But if you do like a pixel perfect like backdash, transfer that momentum into your jump, you can skip getting that. It's a thing I had to do when I played a randomizer of that game.
Yeah, I've never done much sequence breaking. I don't know, maybe I should try it at some point. I've also never played much randomizers, or any randomizers at all, actually. Man, they kind of just like, I feel like from my perception, randomizers just kind of sprung onto the scene recently, like within the last 2 or 3 years.
I think, yeah, like, for one thing, like, people have gotten a lot better at hacking these games as time's gone on. But also, yeah, like, there's definitely been a surge in popularity, mostly from, I think, like, speedrunners and becoming Twitch streamers kind of thing, where they know this game super well, and so they're going to play, and that's also where their audience came from. And so this offers them an opportunity to replay the same game, but always in a different way, and also as a like race style of, okay, people are given the same seed, and then using the mechanics they already know from speedrunning to like just blitz through a new experience. But
yeah, and I can see that being good for streamers, where it's like, unless your fandom's really dedicated to this one game, I imagine they would get tired of it. But
yeah,
at least if you're randomizing it, it'll be like, oh, maybe you get a weird assortment of abilities, and you have to figure out how to get around with that.
Yeah. Like, RPGs also have them, but, like, they're kind of hit and miss. Super Mario RPG has a really good one. They actually...
Oh, yeah?
Crack the game so that it's actually not like it's actually an open world now. Like instead of following like the narrative, you just have access to all the places from the beginning, and you have like a whole bunch of different settings on whether bosses scale in the order you do them, or if they have their original HP and MP. If the stats get randomized, what items do what party members abilities they have. It's great.
Right. But hot take time. RPGs are not great watching for Let's Plays or speedruns or Twitch streams in general.
Unless you're a sad, broken individual like myself.
I just don't get the appeal of watching like, and it's usually even, especially for speedruns, it's like they find the one ability that deals the most damage per like frame of animation or something dumb like that, and then they just use that ability constantly, and it's not even interesting to watch either.
Yeah. Yeah, occasionally it's like if a game has like interesting map movement, they can do things with that, or if the strategy necessarily has to change over the course of the game. But yeah. Yeah, but back to randomizers. I remember playing the DS ones that really had some wild options of like changing like the animations of weapons, such that like they'll suddenly mismatch the character like swinging and what the actual like weapon appearing on your character is. So like you can have like a huge broadsword animation, but it's actually like a weird like a scythe coming out real quick, firing a rocket.
Okay, that's a weird one.
Yeah.
Rocket scythes.
Rocket scythes. It's great. But like it just completely breaks the game, and definitely Portrait of Ruin is not a great randomizer just because it's actually very like segmented and level based. But anyway,
so that means it's not actually a Metroidvania.
I wouldn't go that far, but it definitely like strays enough away from the like the prototypical Metroidvania that I think it suffers. Like it's not helped by that particular design decision, even though in essence it probably isn't functionally all that different from the ones that came before. It's all about context.
Yeah. So I guess when I play Metroidvania games, I'm almost always trying to get all the secrets. I mean, in things with the like souls type mechanic, I'm not gonna bother getting all of the souls. I might get one of all of them, but at least like, for instance, Bloodstained had, oh, you can get multiple of the guy's soul, and then it'll make the ability stronger, or you can fuse them and level them up with synthesis or whatever. And it's just like, no, I don't have time for that.
It's not rewarding in and of itself, so bother that nonsense.
So, like, how do you play Metroidvanias?
Oh, completionist generally, but also like you, if it's just not fun, or if there's no like sideline benefit, like I know if I'm going to play Castlevania Symphony of Night, I know that even if I get everything, I'm not going to get a sexy pinup of Alucard at the end, so why even bother?
Would you want that?
Do you not? Have you? I've got some. All right, to each their own, I guess. Weird. But like, I'm not going to go for like 100% map completion to like get every like square of that. But I will like try and get like, okay, if I'm playing Metroid, like I generally want to get all the E-tanks at the very least. I'll try and do as best I can without using a guide, and then kind of like see where I am for that. Like playing through the Prime trilogy, I generally got around 85% of all the items before deciding, good enough, and just beating the game. Although, if the game offers a way to like indicate where like things you've missed are, I'll generally like do a sweep after getting that. But
yeah, that is really nice. It's kind of annoying when games don't really have any indication of it. It was like, look, I've been all over this game, and it's probably been at least 10 hours, maybe 20, right?
Yep.
It's like, I don't remember that there was a like brittle wall in the second room of the first area.
Yeah. Oh, I
definitely appreciate the things that mark that there's a secret. It's also nice, although I guess harder for them to display, when they mark that there's a secret that you got.
Yes. Yeah, like it won't indicate beforehand, but once you've gotten it, just like marks out like, okay, thing got. If you're going through a guide, you don't have to recheck this area.
Yeah, I think when I was playing Super Metroid, I went for 100% completion, and I I got almost all of it without using a guide. But I think I had something like 10 missile expansions that I hadn't gotten,
It's always the
and
missiles.
I had to go through and like checklist off pretty much every missile expansion in order to make sure that I had gotten them all. That was, I don't know. That was one that I considered giving up on because at that point it had become not all that fun. Although it was kind of cool seeing how easily I could traverse some of the areas. And actually, that was a little weird in Super Metroid because I feel like the ScrewAttack actually made it harder to navigate some areas.
Wait, really? Which ones?
Well, because some of the platforms can be destroyed by the ScrewAttack.
Okay, so well, you just
so it
got
was
to
like,
keep space jumping.
yeah, well, they just like, oh wait, no, I needed that platform so that I could, like shoot a rocket up at the door and then jump through
Oh.
it or something. Now I'm like awkwardly trying to do this in midair. I don't know.
Okay, so despite what we've been told, you do have to stop even if you just space jump.
Yes, I don't know that people are going to get that reference to a loading ready run video from how many years ago, but okay.
Don't worry. Listen, we're a niche podcast or within niches. It's all good.
That's fair. You have to listen to all of the other Canadian content to get it. I don't know. Do you have like a pet peeve about common things done in Metroidvanias that you hate?
Sometimes, like backtracking is not in and of itself bad, but occasionally they just do it bad. Like Prime has you go like you get to a point and then it's like, okay, go back to where your ship was, travel through magma caverns, and it doesn't really open up anything. There's not like a whole lot of things to do with whatever you've gotten in your travels thus far. So you'll go all the way back, finally get the double jump, and then it's like, okay, travel all the way back again.
Yeah, okay, you need to go to this one room to advance one room further to get something that advances you one room further somewhere way over here. That's definitely not great. And
Yeah.
when I say this, I am making shapes with my hands, and this does not work on radio.
That's fine. But yeah, that's kind of like, it's the big thing of like, I appreciate the concept of like going back to old areas. Like that's kind of inherent to the genre, and it's when it's done well, it's like, okay, now I'm super powerful, like you were saying before. Now that things are easy, assuming I don't have the ScrewAttack. And then I can also like pick up things that I had noted, like, oh, I am good at this style of game. I remember this room and that room had certain things that I can now get. Pick those up on the way. Be efficient. It's really rewarding. But when it's done poorly, it's like a slog.
Yeah, sometimes I do that to myself too, where it's like, oh man, I finally have this power. Now I can get to that one room way at the beginning of the game. Clearly there's going to be something there. And like you get past that one thing, and then there's another gate for a different ability, and you're like, oh, man. Why did I come back for this? But it's my own fault.
I used to do the exact same thing. It's learned behavior of me just like, okay, I'm just going to assume I'm going to eventually go back there later. There's going to be a neat little pathway back or something. Press on for now. Do item collection when there's no other options.
I have a weird compulsion to, always be as strong as I possibly can be. So I'm occasionally like, oh, but I have to go back for that secret before advancing the plot because there might be a boss here, and if I'm not at my full strength, then maybe I'll lose.
That's another thing I've learned in my adult years is, like, when I was a kid, same exact thing. But now I'm just like, okay, but I don't want to get too powerful. I'm actually always worried that, oh man, am I breaking the difficulty curve? Did I grind out too much in this one area?
Did I trivialize this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've also, my favorite ones are ones where it's pretty hard to trivialize things. Like, going back to Hollow Knight, you can make it easier, but in the end, you still have to dodge most of the attacks.
Yeah, you want like the crunchy, like mechanics driven combat rather than stats and like just like experience power. I get you.
Yeah. All right. We've been talking for a while, so
We
I
have
think
been
we
talking
can
for a while, so I think we
wrap
should
it up.
probably wrap up this general like wide swath of Metroidvania of all like in general, and then I think next time focus down on an actual game.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
Maybe force each other to play through an old game. Maybe
I-
make you suffer through Metroid 1. I don't know. We can do
Oh.
a different one.
Like I've never played Hollow Knight, and since that seems to be your bread and butter there, might be a good excuse to finally play that game. I know Silk Song is the sequel.
Yeah,
That's
it's
coming
not
out?
out yet.
Yeah,
Soon, TM.
soon TM. So I'd be down to play that to finally gain some insight into what you're into, and I think you should probably play Symphony of the Night.
Yeah, I really should play Symphony of the Night.
Like it's been built up so much that you're probably not going to enjoy it, and I definitely don't think it has the like crunchy combat you love so much. But
I mean, yeah, but I kind of know that,
yeah.
right? Like, I played the original Metroid and found it fine, and Super was good, but like, I don't know. I expect it to be along those lines and not be like, oh, this is the best thing ever, right? Like,
Yeah.
it codified the genre. It didn't like be the be all and end all of the genre, and no one has
Yeah.
ever made a game as good.
Correct. It's definitely a much tighter experience than Bloodstained was, so you'll probably enjoy it more than that. But yeah, I think that will be a pretty good discussion.
All right.
So,
yeah.
in any case, this has been the unaired pilot, potentially, of what are we going to call it?
Fuck if I know. The Inverted Castle.
The Inverted Castle. The reference to the game you haven't played.
I know enough.
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
This has been the first episode of The Inverted Castle.
I'm Tom.
I'm Eric, and remember, you don't have to stop if you just space jump.
We can't steal that as our slogan.
I know.